we've merchandised this as a home office because many of our two-bedroom, two-bath buyers are either single people or young couples. This could ultimately easily be converted into a bedroom for a baby or a young child. Could be converted to a guest room for an empty nester where this could be a fold-out bed. Others have taken this wall and put in French doors leading to the dining area, which creates even more of an open flow. We can put door there. Right now, this room does not have any floor-to-ceiling walls to it, but we could put in a door and make the space more private if the customer chose to live that way. Quite a bit of flexibility in our designs.
It's a really crowded market out there. What would you, if you were talking to a buyer, what would you tell them?
Well, I tell a buyer right now that you know we know most buyers research the market. There are very few buildings or developments in Chicago right now that are actually in a position to deliver homes where if you went to, and were interested in development, some of them haven't started. Many of those may not start given the market today. There's probably a little bit of an oversupply. Some of the developments that are under construction are anywhere from 6 months to a year from delivering. This building, we are 30 to 60 days away from being able to, you are 30 to 60 days away from being able to move into your home. The project is over 80% sold, and we would expect to be closing out in about 9 months. So we would recommend that you buy new and you buy now.
What would you tell an investor these days who's looking at the condo market?
We tell the investors, we do not cater to investors, never have. From our perspective, investors hurt the building ultimately. An investor generally won't buy upgrades. An investor likes to put the minimum amount down. So what we've told investors is if you want to invest and not occupy a home in our buildings, you need to put 10% down. You need to agree to buy upgrades based upon the industry standard, and you cannot sell your home for at least a year after you move in. All we've found is that investors are hurting the market. They help developers gain pre-sales so they can accelerate and build, but if the market's not right, many of those investors will walk away from their investment and leave vacant units in the building. And Joe, it's not my business, but if you go around and take a look at the market right now, the investors have evaporated. They've walked away from their commitments, and some of these buildings are closing with 20% occupancy.
What kind of risk does that pose to a buyer?
Well, buyers are getting into real estate for appreciation. It's one of the few assets that remain where you can almost count on the value of the property increasing. And right now, for instance, we had one buyer who, eastern-facing view, one buyer whose situation changed and wanted an opportunity to get out of his contract. We looked at what we sold that property for 18 months ago, when we just 2 months before we broke ground, and what it would sell for today. It's roughly a 1,000-square-foot home, $70,000 difference between what he paid and what we would put that on the market at today. That buyer wasn't aware of what the appreciation, and he thanked us and said, "Oh, I'm absolutely going to close." And after he closes, although he's not an investor and his situation changed, we'd be more than happy to put that on the market for him and try to realize the market appreciation that he's gained in buying early. So, you know, what I would tell buyers is that look for a developer who has credibility. Look for a developer who's been around the block. We've been in business for over 20 years.
You could probably count on your fingers in one hand the number of developers who survived this market for 20 years in Chicago.
Been very few. You're right, Joe. There have been very few. George Thrush, the founder of this company, is still very involved in the business. He started the business in 1980, and we've seen multiple cycles, multiple development cycles. We pride ourselves in moving into neighborhoods that are emerging. We are very conservative in our underwriting, and as I'd indicated, we stay away from the investor market.
I wouldn't call this an emerging neighborhood anymore. Would you?
Well, I think the West Loop has become much more mature, but the Fulton Market District, I consider it a subset of the West Loop, and it's clearly emerging. The amount of residential development in a half-mile radius of this intersection, you'll probably see a 4 to 5-fold increase in housing units available between now and the next 2.5 years. Steve Fightfield's starting his development just to the north of us, which the Jewel food store will be part of. Much of that will be rental rather than for sale, but within the immediate Fulton Market District, I think you'll see plenty of opportunity for appreciation. Now, our next development over at Madison and Racine, Joe, you're absolutely right. It's nestled in between our successful Block X and Block Y sites, and that's a much more mature market. It's 8 blocks away.
What I was reacting to, David, some people read emerging as a code word for unsafe.
Ah, interesting.
And that's what I was saying when I said it. I don't perceive this as
our definition of emerging is that it's generally the barriers of entry from a development perspective in terms of zoning, purchase price for land, purchase price for the price for the buyer to get in, that we still see that appreciating. This neighborhood is one of the most stable communities in the city in terms of crime. Crime rates are low. We have a phenomenal alderman in Walter Burnett who's done a great job in making sure that the schools, that the community service, fire department, streets and sand, police department, there's a lot of money in this neighborhood, and the services are readily available. By no means is it an immature, unsafe area.
You mentioned schools, and I don't perceive this, and I don't think most people do, as a family area, but are you seeing families coming in here?
Absolutely. You see more and more families moving into the core of the West Loop, where you'll see more townhome development, some single-family home development, and larger condominiums being brought to the market. In fact, I think I mentioned before, me and my family, my wife and I live in the West Loop. Our children attend a private school in the neighborhood, but the public schools between Walter Payton and Whitney Young, which are the top 2 schools in the community, you're within a 5-minute drive from both of those schools. Skinner Elementary is 5 minutes away. There's a language academy over at Harrison and Troop 5 minutes away. There are a half a dozen private and public schools all within a 2-mile radius of here that are tops in the city. And people who enjoy living in the urban environment. Once again, we're different than the suburban. But families who enjoy being in the city have every amenity available to them within either a walk or a short drive of this location.
What else should I know that I haven't asked?
Well, I think I just wanted to reemphasize that Thrush we've been building in this neighborhood since the early 80s. We've developed several office buildings, commercial buildings to the east of this site, and this is our 3rd residential community in the West Loop, and we'll be announcing a 4th community at the corner of Madison and Racine. So if you're in the market to buy today and close in the near term, we have homes available. If you're looking for an opportunity to buy pre-construction, we'll be opening our Madison Racine development in the April or May timeframe. So look us up at thrushhomes.com. Thank you.
David, I want to thank you because it isn't every day that buyers get to, in effect, talk to the developer. So, thanks.
You're welcome.